Welcome to I Finally Get It, where we share real life lessons from real people so you could have a real good life. Have you ever been so focused with work that you avoided family or your health or other really important things in your life? In this episode, we sit down with Scotty Baudoin, where he shares the moment he finally got it. He figured out a solution to workaholism, and you can too. I'm Jeff Martin, and here's my interview with Scotty Baudoin. Let's get it. This is very, very exciting. This is episode 1 of my podcast, and there is not one person on earth that I would rather have as my very first guest. I want to introduce you to Scotty Baudoin. Scotty, you and I have been friends for many years. It's just really nice that you have come here and decided to visit with us and share with us. And so introduce yourself. Talk about where you come from, where'd you grow up, and all that stuff.
First of all, thank you. This is my first podcast, period. So it being your first and you finally get it, it's special for me. So thank you so much for asking. And I've enjoyed our friendship and our relationship. I am the oldest of 6. Most of my time that I grew up is in a country area between Grand Coteau and Orneville. I eventually married my wife, my sweetheart, and the way I label it today, my girlfriend, Maggie. It'll be 40 years ago we met. We have 3 wonderful kids, a son-in-law and a daughter-in-law, but more importantly, we have 4 grandkids. And they have become the center of our life, of where we truly give ourselves. But my wife and I have also spent more time together in a quality way that actually brings me to where I am today.
Yeah. You know, I always talk with everybody, including myself. We're all on a journey. We're on a journey. Life is a journey. And it's fascinating because you honestly, you have helped me along my way so many times. I mean, there have been so many lunches, so many dinners, so many parties, and I've coached you a little bit. You've coached me a lot, and you have really been there. So I want to kind of dig into that journey. Growing up in a little, like Grand Coteau, for those who don't know it, Grand Coteau and where, Orneville?
Between Grand Coteau and Orneville, middle of nowhere.
That is country. So you're just good country people. You just come from good stock. And I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of your family, your parents, and of course, Maggie and the kids. It's been amazing. Today, you have had a career as a electrical engineer for how many years?
36 years in the profession.
36 years. And, of course, you have some changes that are taking place right now. We'll get to that. But what brought you to electrical engineering? I mean,
so my father was an electrical contractor. The funny thing is, I thought I wanted to be a vet and rode around with a vet. After a few gory things, I'm like, no, thank you. And then I thought I wanted to be an accountant. I don't like getting down to the penny, so that didn't work. My dad was an electrical contractor, and so he said, go and be an engineer, speak to an engineer. So I went into engineering. And of course, in graduating engineering, many people ask, why didn't you go in your father's business? And I'm like, no, I'm an engineer. I need to be an engineer. Man, go work for a utility company. I need to be an engineer. I need to do engineering, not marketing. Needless to say, marketing was my sweet spot. Being with people, talking with people, took me years to realize that, but that was where I belong.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So as an engineer, you did several different things before you became like a consultant and had a firm. Am I right?
Yes. I worked for a utility company building substations, transmission, distribution lines. Then I went to work for another consulting firm. And then I just wanted my own culture and own way. And several of us went together and opened up a company.
What's wild, though, knowing your dad, the little bit that I knew him, and he was a contractor. He was an electrician. I know one of your brothers also became an electrician and had his contracting firm. Did he want you to just do better than he did? Or what was the deal with him suggesting you become an electrical engineer?
I don't remember. I think you might have hit it when he wanted me to do better or in a different area. There were times where he might have wished I was in the firm helping his company. I think that might have been it. Do better. Engineers were always the one that told the contractors what to do. He yeah, I think it was to do better.
That's pretty neat. And so where were you at? This is a weird question, but where did you fall? Aren't you the oldest?
Oldest.
Yeah, that's what I
6.
thought. You were the oldest of 6 kids.
Yes.
That's amazing. And so you went to UL. That's where you met Maggie?
Met her at the Keg, of all places. Yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So we're at UL. We met Maggie. That clicked right away, I'm sure.
Yes.
And then you just went hard charging. Did y'all start having kids right away?
So we met, dated, were married within 2 years. Ben was born a few days after my last final, a few days before I graduated.
No way.
I made my best grades after I got married.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. By far. Yes.
You think it's just the responsibility of being married and wanting a family and all that?
Yeah. And needing to get a job to support the family.
Got it. Okay. So, look, the one thing that I can tell is you're a hard worker. And today, knowing you the way I do, we've worked together some, and I've seen the practice you've built, and it's amazing. That didn't happen overnight, though.
I was lulled into that hard working. I witnessed it first from my dad, who I remember before he went into the contracting business, he was in an estimating business. When they received a set of drawings that they had to estimate for doing electrical estimation, which back then was pretty by hand, computer, they were starting. He worked long hours through the night. So I witnessed that. So I first learned some working habits watching him. And I had grandfather who worked hard when he was out in the field, out in the area, on the farm area working hard. So yeah, I saw what hard work was like.
Yeah. And I'm sure you brought that. It's one of the things we were talking about right before we got on camera. It really became a struggle, right? As you were raising your kids and the kids were growing up, and you found yourself driven to work and support the family.
Absolutely. So I remember, we talk about working remotely in COVID. I was working remotely 26 years ago, bringing stuff home, coming home, helping bathe the kids, do things. They go to bed. I work from 8 o'clock to midnight past, I thought I was Superman, burned candle at both ends. I was doing everything. It wasn't true. I was burning, but not in the shape I needed to be in. So yes, I learned how to work hard, which there was a moment I realized, this is not healthy.
Well, tell me about that. But was your health suffering, or was your home life?
It was, I can't say the home life was suffering. It was suffering. So I didn't feel or didn't know any better. And so one day I'm working on a Saturday, finishing a large federal project, or trying to. They'd set a deadline for Monday. I'd gotten a speeding ticket that week. And to have the speeding ticket removed from my record, I can go in Saturday morning for a couple hours, watch a class and get it expunged from the record. I chose to go into work, and I chose not to go to a soccer game so I could work and get the job done and please the client, because it was about pleasing the client, which gave you more clients, a vicious cycle. At that point in time, I realized something's wrong with this. And I started to put my foot down. It was a moment I still remember where I was in the office, but to get myself out of it took a little bit more. Other things happened through life. But that was a pivotal moment for me.
So you were working in your own firm at that time?
No, I was working for someone else, but always with the thought, I'm always working for myself. No matter where I work, it's about working.
I agree 100%. So how did this impact your family? You said you missed your kids' games. That had to be tough on them a little bit, huh?
It was, but we didn't know the full impact yet. Maggie supported my work because it supported the family. So we thought. I'm saying this hindsight. I didn't realize the full impact on my kids yet. And it wouldn't be fully realized till years later. Because shortly after I realized, hey, I shouldn't be working this hard, I did do some things and stop clients from making ridiculous demands on me and not working as much on weekends, but I still continue to work. And then I went into my own business. And what do you have to do in your own business? You have to work hard. We worked 6 months without pay. I worked hours and hours because I got to start the business and get things going. And then I realized at some point in time, things started happening in the family, not even knowing the root cause of things.
Yeah. So at that, like if something happened in your family, you really didn't have an explanation for it. And you certainly didn't think, well, it's because I'm working a lot.
No,
right?
That's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I learned how to do with my dad. I needed to work.
So your dad modeled a certain behavior. Your grandfather working out in the field modeled hard working behavior. And we should work hard, right? But at some point, it catches up with us.
Right. In my mind, I was working not only at work, now I started volunteering at church. And that's a good thing, right? It's for church. So I was working hard at church, working hard at work, even at home, taking care of certain things. Yeah, I learned how to work real hard and do a lot of things. Multitask. I used to think I could have 2 conversations at one time. No, I can't. I couldn't, but I did. My brain told me I could.
Yeah. I'll never forget when I got out of the military and I went back to school. I was working full time, going to school full time, and one of my teachers looked at me and she saw that my health was suffering. I was gaining weight. She said, at some point, something's going to break. At some point, you don't know, it's going to break. Did you feel that while you were going through that, or you were just so driven to succeed and provide that you didn't feel any effect on Scotty?
I numbed those effects. There were things happening, gaining weight, then, needing to buy clothes that I couldn't afford because I was still raising a family. I'd get angry easy at times, but it was just part of the mess, part of the noise. I needed to work. Work became the center of focus. Work at church, work at the office, even work from home. I'd take things home, put the kids to bed, work from, as I mentioned before, 8 to 2 in the morning. I didn't need much sleep, right? And, things, juggling a lot of plates at one time as a friend.
I feel like the tough part is you're there for your clients. You're there for your partners in the business. You try to be there for your family, and you're just not there at all for yourself.
Oh, no.
And it's tough. And a lot of people suffer with that.
Yeah, I had to take care of everybody. So I thought.
Exactly. So how long do you feel like you were in that mode from like when you got out of college, or did it happen a little bit later, or?
No, it was actually in college, but not as hard. But from when I got out of college, even out of college, went to work for an area I didn't know. So I had to study to be better than the guys already there. Changed from Louisiana Power and Light to Clico. I had to be better than the guys at Clico. There was always in the back of my mind a competitiveness to be better than the other guy. So I'd have to say after college, when I started gaining an income for what I was doing and my career, as I would call it. And that continued till I owned my own company. And then things started happening really with the family.
So some of this can be tough. I mean, you're talking about your family and some of the effects of your hard work start to impact your family. Can you just feel free to share whatever you're willing to share. But again, this is so helpful for other people that are challenged with the same thing. What kind of impact did it have on your family?
So then I forget the year. I had a child starting to struggle with addictions issues, and not even knowing that was symptoms of my working behavior. Didn't realize that till eventually he was about 16, arrested, possession, and various things. And even that, that became the issue. Got to work on that issue too, right? Work on fixing something. Took time, energy, money. Then he really decides to go through treatment at 18. And that's when our journey began. That's when I started realizing, all right, something's up here. And during family weeks, that's when we realized we need to work on ourselves. They came back to us and said, if you want to take care of the family, you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, airplane, put on your mask first.
So that has been a theme even of this last week. If put the oxygen on yourself first before you're, oh my God, it was so true. But I still didn't know the root because of my mind was still on his issues. So I thought, and I went to a therapist and we started to get to some things and then it stopped. But I knew it had started me thinking there are issues here. In and around that time, I started realizing, oh my God, it was my lack of attention through family weeks, through therapists. It was my lack of attention. When I came home, I was home exhausted from work, thinking I was okay, handling everything. I wasn't present to them. Basically, I kind of abandoned them mentally and then physically at times, where I wasn't present. And there was abandonment. That abandonment affected the growth of my children, and each one has their own things, but it was one in particular that took us on this journey of addiction. That was the worst thing that's ever happened to our family. It's the best thing that's ever happened. The growth we gained and the health we gained from that journey, I now continue to share that with others. But it was still, even though it pointed to, all right, I work too much, I need to quit it. I'm a workaholic. I'm a recovering workaholic. I never got to the root of why I was workaholic. I hadn't pointed back to my own wounds of abandonment while I was watching my dad work, wanting to be him to work.
So you watched your son go through a challenge, and through his recovery, you have learned that you probably had some impact on that. We all make decisions, and you can't take all the blame. However, when you said it was a blessing that, he started through this road to recovery, and you were realizing some things personally. I mean, that is profound. That is amazing to me. And I love that you're looking at, you went back to look at your life, like how did I see this? Or how did I see this coming? And some of these things, I have to say that you watched your grandfather and you watched your father, and you just took on. We do that. We do that in life. But for watching your son go through that and being there for him, being present as you can for him, you realized, man, I got some work to do. I'm figuring some stuff out. So was there ever a point where you just said, enough, this is it? You've said this, I'm a workaholic, and this has got to stop, because it's not only impacting me, it's impacting the people around me. And if there's a point, do you remember any event?
I think the point was in and around the beginning of his treatment. And it was said, but I have to admit, it's hard to pull out of certain habits and behaviors. And even when you desire it, go try to find someone who can help you being a workaholic. You can find AA, NA, pick your A. You can find plenty of those. But in the United States, in a working culture, go find someone who says, I work too much, and I need some help. So it was hard to get out of. And what I didn't realize is I had to kind of do some of this work myself. What do I mean by work myself? I couldn't find a group. But I had to go. I started searching. Something was wrong. Something in my communications was wrong. Something in my behavior was wrong. What I didn't realize later is something in my feelings were wrong. I didn't know what feelings were. I'd stuffed them too many times. I consider myself somewhat illiterate with feelings. I can't name them because I haven't had the practice to name them. I don't know all the words. I'm learning, still learning. So I had to go looking. It wasn't easy because you're working in a culture that points here, and it wasn't. So it was a time where I'm a workaholic. I need to quit. I didn't know who to ask for help to quit.
Yeah. Did you end up finding anybody or a group?
It was not one person who says workaholic. I found a person who helped me. So I found this therapist by accident, of course, right? I was helping a son-in-law who's actually struggles with addiction find a workshop that I had went on similar. And in finding that workshop, I called on a therapist, and he later calls me on Monday. And this was only about 3 years ago. He calls back, and as I'm talking to him in my heart, I can hear myself saying, keep on talking, keep on talking. So I'm Googling him on the internet to get to his website, and I see his characteristics and his personality. And then I see he's Christian-centered. I go, what do you mean by that? So we just have this amazing conversation. And I said, would you mind if I see you? I'd call for you for this workshop. But you mind if you see me? And he goes, no, fill out this questionnaire. I sent in the questionnaire. He calls. We're on a conference call. He's out of town. First words out of his mouth, Scotty, do you struggle with shame? I'm like, oh, I got this one. I listen to Brene Brown. I've listened to all that. And I'm going, no. I was going to say no. And in the middle of it goes, no one's ever asked me that. And yes, I do. And so that was the start. Shame became, it was one of the products of not working so hard, right? I didn't meet this element. I didn't make this much money. I didn't make, so it was a product of the workaholic where I didn't meet my own thoughts of what I should be by that time. So that was a pivotal moment where I got to a root I had not seen. So it was actually hard to find roots without knowing that workaholic was an issue. If I had to say that was a pivotal moment, there were several bumps in the road, moments of, I get it, but I had nobody to help me get out of it.
Yep. Yeah, and that I think that's all of us with different things. And of course, through life, we figure a lot of stuff out. But there are those moments where you have a little clarity and it kind of goes back because you got to get stuff done.
Right.
And you start to discover something. A lot of times the answer will be on the tip of our tongues, but we just can't get to it because we have other variables: family, work, business, clients, kids, issues. That's an amazing journey. And I really appreciate you sharing all of these things with us. What I'm fascinated by is that it's really a lifelong, you said you started working really hard during college. And then your son was 18 when he started his treatment. So that had to have been 22, 21 years of really focused hard work. And I personally know you were there for your kids. You've raised a wonderful family. You have a beautiful family, but I understand that it has taken a toll. This hard work what's life like now? Like when you figured something out.
Yeah. So, work's not the number one item. Work's there to support everything else, but everything else gets my attention. The thing, if I had to say anything now, is being present. At the present moment, you're in front of me. I am present to you. I'm not thinking of what might happen, what might not. I have a client or I have a stranger in front of me. It's being present. It's being present. And then determining what to be present to and what takes what order and when. If anything out of all that is just being present for myself. I'm speaking for myself. But to be present for myself, I got to remember I don't have to work all the time. I don't have to do all this work. I don't have to be busy to accept who I am.
So to me, that's the answer. You realized presence and priorities. And I'm sure you've gotten much better at making decisions over the years. And so to me, life is about decisions and priorities and being present for those, including yourself, and so that's a big deal. So
so something just came to me. I think it's important. A workaholic. So I say being present. What I may not be sharing enough is, as a workaholic, I could be in an event. I could be right now. And while you're talking, I'm thinking about work or something I need to do. I guess it's no different than someone who might be a working alcoholic, a functioning alcoholic, they call it. I can be on the drug of work anytime, day or night, and you don't even know it, except I'm not present. And so I think that came to mind while you were talking. So
yeah, and it's hard. What I find in a lot of companies is divided attention. You can't create expertise because I'm either doing too many things, I have too many responsibilities, or I just can't focus. And in your world, if you're at home, but your mind's back at the office, that's divided attention. And that is a part of workaholic.
And of course, nobody can do it as well as we can, right? Yeah. So, we're the only ones who can do it and do it. It's just part of the habits. Yes, absolutely.
So that's yet another symptom of workaholism, I guess,
right.
What you might call it. I love that you've gotten your arms around this. I've known you for so long. I knew you probably 15 years ago. And we had a funny story about how we met. But since I've met you, you've gotten deeper in the church. You have become a Catholic deacon in the church. And so really, that's a career as well. I mean, you have a career as a deacon, a career as an electrical engineer, running a nice firm here in town. And now you've started to make some changes. So tell me about your future. What are you doing right now?
So in the same way I found the therapist to help me personally, when you don't want to be a workaholic, you develop behaviors at your workplace, either culturally or within, and you might have even enabled people to not do what they're called to do because I was doing them and working too much. I found this amazing coaching system called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, which allowed me to get a hold of my business and allow the business to start giving me what I need from it and operating in a healthy way. Before, we had no particular way. I had a way I wanted things to occur, a culture per se, but EOS helps you name your culture, decide on your vision, look at what you think's good by what they do at the scorecard, solve issues. We never solved any issues. We put them aside. We ignored them. Name your processes and then learn how to do things. They call it traction. It was a little bit of chaos before. And it was also lonely as an entrepreneur. I didn't have anybody to share with. EOS starts sharing your vision with others within your leadership. I fell in love with the system and I just started sharing with everyone. Kind of like you share the good news or you share this great thing. I shared therapy with people who were willing to hear about it. I shared EOS with many people. Today, I am proud and excited to be an EOS coach in helping people get what they need out of their business. And if there's an opportunity for me to share or see someone having the workaholic tendencies, to let EOS help them with that, but also dive deeper to see where that might be coming from. I'm always open for that.
That's great. And congratulations, by the way, because it's one of the systems that I love and recommend wholeheartedly to business owners, companies. There's one thing that we haven't talked about is you've spent this 36 years as an electrical engineer. You have a very well-respected, very well-run business, and you're making a pretty big shift right now.
Yes. I'm actually selling at one of the best profit times we've ever had. And that came to me during, I used to say a vacation Maggie and I went on, but I now say a pilgrimage because we encountered God in each other, individually, collectively, in nature. And it was like 2 weeks of a great meditation. It happened to occur after I went on this amazing little retreat put on by a good friend of mine, Jeff Martin. You know him?
Yeah. It's great.
I asked Jeff to do a little retreat for our electrical department. And Jeff said, Scotty, what do you want me to do it on? I'm like, dude, I trust you. Just do it. And he starts presenting this thing called Hero on a Mission. That's the name of it, right?
Yep.
Pretty morbid, though, because he goes, hey, look, we're going to write our obituary. I'm like, oh, no. And look, that brought some emotions in to write that. And you basically pick the year you're going to die and then what you want to look like and what your loved ones are going to say about you. This happened a month or so before I went on vacation, pilgrimage. And so I wrote all that down. Even got the app. He told us not to get it, got the app. I didn't look at it as much, of course. So Maggie and I are riding and we're listening to the Audible book and talking about it, listening to it. And one of the things was to sell my business, like in, I forget the years. Might have been 8 years or something. I told leadership it'd be about 8 years. And I might have bumped it up in the Hero on a Mission. On that pilgrimage, it's time to sell the business. It's time to, like, not sell the business, like I was being called to something else. Yeah. And even during that time, I visited with a coach there who happens to be my son's coach. And she helped me start putting some things together, helped me look at that. She gave me some things to read to help me put some things in order. Came back home and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to let go of this. I don't know how they're going to buy it. And the day after I'm home, somebody calls and says, hey, would you like to sell your business? Never. I've been in business. Somebody did ask me to buy our business a month in the business. I said, no, I want to work for myself. And I want the culture that we have. And so I came back and that just put the wheels into motion of letting go. And that was just part of continuing to let go and allowing God to guide us on that journey. So yeah, that allowed me to move into being an EOS coach.
That's great. Yeah. You know, it's funny. At one point you said that you called a therapist to set up a workshop for your son-in-law. Mm-hmm. And I think you were joking, but you said, oh, it's a coincidence. Mm-hmm. And then there are no coincidences. No. I mean, there are just no coincidence. It's amazing. And I started with life is like a journey, right? You have taken us from a little town between Arnaville and
no town, country.
Yeah, out in the country, off to college, married, family. And thank you for sharing your challenges you've had with workaholism. What would you share with somebody who might be listening to help them if they're suffering with workaholism?
I really invite them to get to the root cause. The workaholism is a symptom. You're doing that for a reason, and get to a deeper cause. My goal in life is to break the cycle. And workaholism is not the only symptom. Actually, all the other isms, addicts and addictions we do, workaholics, one of them. But get to the root cause. Find out we've all have some sort of wound of our past. And sometimes we're living out of the pain of those wounds or the masking of that pain. So I'd invite them to be vulnerable, to love themselves, to grab the oxidative mask first before they attempt to take care of someone else. Because chances are, if you're a workaholic, you're also helping a lot of others first. I was always tend to help someone first. I'm the one to ask all the questions and never let them ask me the questions. Shame was a byproduct of that, not being vulnerable. Today, I try to be as vulnerable as possible. Being here is being vulnerable, being seen, heard, which I don't like to see and hear myself. So I'd invite them to find out what's that root cause. Workaholics, the problem or the issue, it's not helping, but get down to the root of why are you a workaholic? I'd enjoy that conversation always, as you know, just out of inviting them to heal it, to allow it to heal, but not to operate from it, not to operate from that wound.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you for sharing that and inviting them to a conversation. If anybody wants to reach you, we'll put your contact information in the show notes. But I want to wrap this up with one last question. And I kind of since you're the first episode, I have to share with you how I came to this. I was talking with my wife, Katie, and she shared with me a Mother Teresa quote, Saint Teresa of Calcutta. One day she was working with some of her nuns in her order, and she was talking with them about being present to people. And she said, you want to leave people different and better because they encountered you, right? Shining the light of Christ to others. How do you leave people different and better?
I'm here to invite them to break that cycle of whatever it is inside of them where they can't find peace. Peace is inside of us. Something's not allowing them to be at peace, some sort of wound. And so I want to invite them to acknowledge their brokenness, love themselves anyway, in spite of where they might feel broken, and invite them to live out of their trueness, their truest broken self, knowing that they have something to offer, and that they are loved, and their wounds and their brokenness doesn't define them, and there's a life to that with that.
Thank you for joining us this week on I Finally Get It. To check out Scotty and what he's up to now, just visit our show notes at ifinallygetit.com. Tune in next week when we sit down with John Ray Perkins and he talks about the moment he finally got it. I think you're going to like this one. Make sure you visit ifinallygetit.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or subscribe to one of the podcast streaming services that you usually listen to. Until next time, learn real life lessons so you can have a real good life.